You sent me a book called Naismith, Myth, very clever title, insinuating, of course, that the legend around Naismith, the largely accredited inventor of basketball, is in fact a myth. Here you are, trying to change the way people track time and count numbers, reflecting on your little hamlet, your village, at the center of all things. You've gone back to your hometown to tilt once again at windmills. So what's changed in the 5 or 6 months since I saw you last?
Well, the one dynamic I didn't mention to you guys is that there were two brothers that were working on a book about the Herkimer basketball story. And what happened to them was they were living in Kansas in 2010, and they wrote an article doubting the origin of basketballs and the Naismith narrative. And a couple months later, another reporter in Kansas City followed up with an interview of Dr. Naismith's grandson, and he mentioned this book and story. And Dr. Naismith's grandson got very upset and threatened if anybody else brings up the Herkimer story that he will personally kick their butt. And he wants Herkimer out of his life, and on and on. So these two brothers get sort of blackballed in Kansas, because it's where Naismith is.
Are these Frosty brothers, is it?
Fosty brothers, right? Fosty, and they wrote a book called Black Ice, which showed how the history of ice had a lot to do with other than white people playing hockey. And so they sort of got whitewashed through the years. And so they did this amazing book and changed how the history of hockey will be told forever. And what happened was they left Kansas City after this happened. And I contacted them 18 months ago when I started working on this, and I found them through searching on Google and such. And I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm here. I'm going to try to prove this Herkimer story that basketball was invented here. How far along were you guys on the book, and how close could you be? And they were just wrapping up a project and said, we would love to sit down and go through it. And so they've been working on this day and night for the past 18 months, 16 months maybe. And when they called me 3 weeks ago and said, it's done, we're ready, and they gave us 1 more week to submit evidence, and we found 2 earth-shattering pieces of evidence, and I'll explain why in a minute. But these 2 brothers are Ukrainian. They're from Canada, Canadian-Ukrainian brothers. And to do Black Ice and now to get a chance to rewrite the history of basketball after what they experienced with Dr. Naismith's grandson just seems like it's coming full circle.
Yeah, and I've been reading something about Ukraine in the headlines here of late. Must be an amazingly fascinating time for these two.
Fascinating indeed. And, we got to be sensitive to these things, obviously, because of the situation around the world. And I know this is a sensitive subject to take a 130-year-old myth that has been conceived as truth and to just destroy that narrative. But we have the physical evidence to prove that.
Well, I want you to walk me through it like you did last time with special emphasis on the new stuff. But I want to say